Alright, so once again, welcome to my shop. Okay, so today we have a 2003 Yamaha 115 two-stroke. Customer did water pump, says it's running great, but I'm overheating at around 4,500 RPMs. He says if I run it down to about 4,000 RPMs, it's no problem, it'll run all day. But as soon as we get to about 4,500 RPMs, beeper goes off and starts overheating. So we're going to check this out today. There's a few various reasons why it would do this. We've got a Poppet valve in the back. We have thermostats. There we go, now we can hear. It's a freshwater motor, and it's down here now in Florida. It's only been here a short period of time, came from North Carolina, and this thing is very, very clean. So I don't suspect any issues with water jackets or cylinder head gasket problems. Let's see what we got. Yeah, this motor's beautiful. Nice and clean, man. The gaskets are crisp. It's not flawless, but it's close. Looks like it's got some newer gaskets here, possibly on the thermostats. Your Poppet assembly is located right here, and if you notice down here, it's like this motor's not quite as clean as I thought. Florida's been eating them up apparently. So we got a lot of corrosion on our hose right here for our Poppet assembly. So it's easier to get this off if you get this ECU or this CDI unit off the back of the motor. A lot of times you can get to them back here and leave all this intact. I do pull this cover off though, because that gives you a little bit of extra space, because it's spring loaded and it's tough to get these bolts lined back up if you after you get it off there. So let's pull this off, see if he has the updated Poppet in here or he still has the old one. Okay, so the tools I'm going to use for this, so obviously my buzz gun, 10 millimeters. There's two 10 millimeter bolts that hold it on, and I bring a little ratchet in case I need extra torque. This gun's pretty strong, but when you're doing this, you want to make sure these are not going to break. I don't have a lot of problems with these ever breaking, but you got to use caution, because this is a tough one to try to get in here and drill out. You almost have to pull the cylinder head off to drill these out if they break. So we'll try the first one, and it is not moving. Let's hope it's due to the lack of torque on that gun. See what we got. Okay, great. This one is good. We'll loosen this one as well. Alright, they both loosened up nicely. So I'm going to grab my gun and zap these off. One, and number two is going to start springing back at you. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and this is the Poppet, and this is the spring and the gasket, and the Poppet itself fell. I believe it's already got the updated one in here, which that's kind of disappointing, because that doesn't give me an answer as to why it was overheating. Okay, so this is the updated Poppet assembly that Yamaha made for the two strokes later on. It's a mushroom head. The old one had the same spline on both sides and a disc right here, and it pushed through the rubber grommet, and what would happen is that the rubber grommet would build corrosion and it would hold this and freeze it, so it couldn't move and allow excess water to go through there and cool the engine over 3,000 RPMs. That's the job of this Poppet assembly. So this is the update that they made. It's a mushroom head, so it can't get stuck. So it's already got that in there, so that doesn't explain why he's overheating at his RPMs. So we're going to go ahead and put this back in here. It's a lot nicer when the gaskets stay in place, because this is a lot to fight to put it all back together. So what I'll do is I'll take a bolt and I'll fish it through one side of the gasket. And sometimes you can use some tack compound and glue the gasket on. I don't believe I have any more at the shop, so I'm going to try to do it the old-fashioned way if possible. You get both bolts fed through there. And I am, however, going to pull this coil off to get it out of my way. The access we can get at this point, the better. Okay, so I got a little more visual. And we've got to take this big spring, as well as this assembly, and I'm going to push this up against the housing to help hold that in place. Getting my coil wire out of there so we don't crimp it. Okay. And so now that my spring and my Poppet are in position, I'm going to set this into the housing. There's a groove in there that will help guide me in place. And if that's in, I'm going to take and press this Poppet assembly into position slowly. Not enough to knock the screws out, just enough to get them started. I'm going to start one, then I'm going to start the other, then I'll run them in because I'm secure at that point. There's one. Other side. Okay. Snug it down. Other side. Okay, looks tight. Next we're going to check our thermostats to see if this may be the culprit. And they are nicely greased up, so I got a feeling somebody's been here as well. And our thermostats look brand new. I mean brand new, so most definitely that's probably not the issue. Seems that somebody's tried to tackle this problem already. So it's got a new water pump, got new thermostats and the updated Poppet, but we're still overheating at 4,500 RPMs. Alright. Coil back on. I'm going to check the oil levels on his onboard tank as well as this tank over here to see if possibly he's just running low on oil, and when he gets up to those RPMs it could be tilting the boat and making the alarm set off on the oil tank. I'm starting to run out of options. Look at this. See a problem right here. Our oil level is low. Okay, we have oil here, but our oil level is low. It's hard to see through here, but the actual line of oil is right here. This is your full line, so we're just below it, which is not much, but on a plane or at different higher RPMs, this oil level can tilt and shift and set this alarm off. So when this pops up, let's see if I can demonstrate how this oil alarm sounds. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put the key in and turn it to the on position. Put the lanyard in it. Okay, so the key is in and it is on. And I'm going to lift this oil sensor out of the tank and it should set the alarm off. Okay, that's the audible alarm. It's a solid beep. On a Mercury, the oil alarm is a intermittent beeping. You place this down, the alarm goes off. So for some reason we're not filling up our tank to where it needs to be. When that alarm goes off though, it should fill this up. So let's see if it's filling. When the alarm goes off, or this says I'm low, it sends a ground signal to the onboard tank, which then has another pump on that tank, and it pumps the oil to this reservoir here to fill it back up. So sometimes those pumps go bad, sometimes the ground signal in the ECU goes bad, sometimes this sensor goes bad, but let's go ahead and let her whine and see if we actually fill up. Okay, so let me give you guys a little rundown on how this Yamaha sensor works. There's 4 wires coming out of it. One is a ground. The other 3 become grounds when this magnet gets to different positions. Okay, so I'm going to do a continuity test on this. When this is full to the top, full of oil, sets a beeper off. Okay, that's your white wire. Your brown wire receives a ground signal when the sensor gets about halfway to say, hey, I need more oil. And as the oil fills up, the beeper shuts off. And the red wire tells me when we're all the way out of oil and to put the ECU into limp mode. Okay, this sensor itself is good. This module is most likely the problem at this point. Okay, so our blue wire is our hot wire for fuel, for our oil pump. The brown wire is your ground signal. It's supposed to be sent from the motor. Alright, now I've got it prodded in here just after the module on the brown wire, and if you look at the voltage when I hit the emergency switch, sending our ground wire, and we have 11.5 volts. Let go, we're back to 0 again. When I move the sensor that we tested and is good, I get no ground signal sent. So it's telling me that this module is bad and it is not sending the signal, and this is my diagnosis, is this module is bad, and we need to figure out how much that module costs, or if the customer wants to replace it or just bypass the oil system. Okay guys, I'm back. We've diagnosed that this module itself is what the culprit is, and I went and I looked it up and I priced it, and that stupid thing is $522. Discussed this with the customer, and he says he grew up on pre-mixed engines and it doesn't bother him at all. So he asked me to go ahead and pre-mix the engine rather than fixing the problem. Not a big deal. I personally like pre-mix better as well, but okay, we can't leave this wire here, this blue wire. If this wire is left in here and it touches the metal, it's going to set the alarm off and put this motor in slow mode. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this is not going to touch metal anywhere. Okay, so this is how I like to bypass the oiling system. I'm not sure how other people do it. I know there are various ways to do it, and I've tried a few, but First thing I do is I take the oil sensor and I push the magnet completely to the top. Alright, and then I'll take a zip tie and I run the zip tie right above it to keep this thing full. Okay. And just for good measures, I like to add a second one to make sure it doesn't slide down and set that alarm off, because I like to leave the electronics hooked up. After bypassing it, I'll place this back in here. We're going to empty this oil tank completely, because once I cut these lines and block them, I don't want them to leak oil all over the place. There's 3 bolts. You got one up here, one right here, one in behind here between the starter. Okay. Just do that, your oil tank will come up. I'm going to take this oil and dump it in here. So the oil tank is empty. I'm going to put my sensor back in. And let the oil tank down. Had a huge mess doing this. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and block both the oil tank and the pump from receiving oil any longer. So to do that, I'm going to run a few Yamaha bolts, 10mm ones in here, drive them down. And I'm going to zip tie them. You can use hose clamps or whatever size bolt you have that'll fit in there. But this is what I'm going to use. You want to make sure the bolt fits fairly snug if you're going to use zip ties though. Not that there's anything in this tank, but you want to make sure you're okay. Some people pull the pumps and remove the drives, which is not a bad idea to do. I definitely do it on the Mercuries. On the Yamahas, it's a pretty solid pump. The reason they do that is because there's a drive on the crankshaft that rotates this oil pump. Sometimes I've seen people recirculate them back into the pump. I've seen them remove the pump and drive completely and put off block-off plates. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I don't really have any problems with this method here. There's a brass drive inside of there. It's a steel worm gear with a brass drive on the crankshaft. And these pumps don't really fail enough to be locking up the engine or creating problems or so forth. So block both lines up. There's enough oil in that pump to lubricate it for probably another 10 to 20 years or more. Easily. I'm going to pull each of the lines. We have fill lines or bleed lines that go from here to the front of the intake that pump oil in each area. Remove this module to get access to the lines. Probably going to catch a little slack from some people on this method, but I've not had any problems with it, and I feel comfortable doing it. So we got our 4 lines. They bleed to each cylinder on the intake side. So I'll snip them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You don't want this engine to suck air and run lean, so you're going to want to plug each one of these. I plug them from the oil side and then I also plug them that are going to the intake side. To do this, I use small stainless steel screws. I run them into there and then I zip tie each one. They're pretty snug as it is, so whether your zip tie held or not, you should be okay, but I do both. The objective in this portion here is to make sure that your intake is not sucking air and creating lean conditions. The objective in bypassing the float movement and zip tying it up is so that it doesn't drop and set off any alarms, and it tells your ECU that you have oil. Okay, so we have all 4 of our lines blocked off, so the intake's not going to be sucking air. We'll take 4 more screws and run them down on the pump side so that the oil in here can continue to lubricate the pump. Okay guys, so we got this oil system all bypassed, we got the tank pre-mixed, everything disconnected we needed to do. So now what we're going to do is purge the fuel system out. We're going to pump the gas until we see mixed gas coming out. That way I know when this customer leaves, he's going to have mixed gas in his engine and not a gallon of standard fuel. Alright, we're going to pull our fuel line off. What I like to do in this case is use my electric fuel pump to do it, so I can pump out about a gallon or 2 worth of fuel. This thing does a pretty good job, and it is a lot easier than pumping it by hand. I hook it up to positive and negative and it starts pumping. Find a good ground on our block here. And we're going to need a positive. And here it starts pumping as soon as you do that. Sometimes, like then, it'll prime itself. So there's enough fuel, and you see here's our gas. Gas that is coming out of here right now. It's very clear. Okay, it means we haven't reached our oil yet. If this customer was to run all this fuel through here, first start, he'd probably lock the engine up before the oil ever got there. So we're going to pump it until we see fuel. It usually takes about a gallon or so. The oil blends in the fuel quickly.
3 days later.
Alright, let's see where we're at. Yeah, it's looking better. I think we are pretty safe on that. It's got a nice green hue to it. Tell me I'm getting oil now. Alright, so we got everything bypassed. We got our oil purged. We pump it up to the engine. Let's get this oil tank fastened back down here. Some people want me to just go ahead and remove the whole thing. He said he didn't really care, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it. So otherwise it's just going to end up in the trash. And like I said, maybe one day will somebody want to put it back in. Highly doubt it, but I'll leave it to the customer to make that decision. And where's the power ball? Here we go. Okay, these carburetors are basically empty, so everything we're priming up in here is going to be new, fresh, mixed gas. It's good. Batteries are on. Let's start it up and make it smoke. Okay, to start a Yamaha, it's very similar to the others. Old 2-strokes, you're going to turn the key to the on position, push it in. They don't have the primer solenoid on this one. They have choke flaps. So the flaps are going to close and they're pretty easy to hear if you listen. I don't know if you can hear them, but they're closing. So you hold it in and you crank it. That's it. That's a pretty good running Yamaha there. I don't know why I got to rev them up, but it makes me happy. Alright, so our oil injection bypass is done, tank pre-mixed. Customer should not get his alarm no more. And you can go back to fishing. So that's another episode. If you guys like this type of work, please like and subscribe. And have a great day.
3 days later.